macOS RAM management is really good. I gotta admit that. Just take a look at this. So this Mac was just restarted when recording this video. You could see just by those icons right there. And when I type in my password, you could still see that it is a freshly booted up Mac because of the progress bar right there. And you can also see that we are still on a freshly booted Mac. And if we were to immediately go to activity monitor, as you can see again, it's taking a little bit to open up because it's doing background tasks for now. You could see that we are using quite a bit of memory, but it's not enough to make it count as swap. So let's just go into Safari here and let's start doing some stuff that average users would do. For example, maybe go to a shopping website, go to YouTube, go to Google Classroom. Yeah, just average stuff that people would use in their web browser, like Safari, since that's like the most efficient browser and most popular browser on the Mac. Let's also play a YouTube video. I'm just gonna go onto my channel and go to the first video that plays. We'll full screen it, and I muted it because I don't want the sound. You can still see we're using 0 bytes of swap. Now let's go into a little game. Everybody likes Roblox. I see Roblox quite a bit on Macs, so we're gonna open up Roblox here, and let's go play Bloxburg, because why not? And after loading into Roblox, we can see we are still using 0 gigabytes of swap, while Roblox is using about 2 gigabytes of RAM, and still uses to use 2 gigabytes of RAM throughout the process. Using 2.32 gigabytes, but we still hit 0 swap. Yeah, this is just proof that RAM management on macOS is really good. And this is on an M1 MacBook Air with 8 gigabytes of memory. But how come I'm making this video? Why do I want Apple to increase the limit from 8 gigabytes to 16 gigabytes of memory? Well, the first reason is personally a me reason, because I initially wanted a 16 gigabyte RAM MacBook, but I was happy to get this M1 Air with 8 gigabytes as well. However, there was just one thing that caused me from getting a 16 gigabyte MacBook from an 8 gigabyte MacBook. Now, I did come from Windows, and I did have a 16 gigabyte machine that I upgraded to 16 gigabytes myself. It was pretty decent. However, RAM management on Windows, probably still a bad thing today. And from what I hear, it's even worse than when I did switch. The main reason why I switched to a MacBook was because of the M1 chip, and because it's really fast, it still works and everything really well, and I would not be needing an upgrade because I have 8 gigabytes of RAM and the things I do has changed, like software development I do now, like actual software, not just like Roblox software and stuff like that. And things have been getting a lot better. For example, a lot of apps don't need Rosetta anymore. Rosetta does take up a lot of RAM, but still, Xcode was one of the first apps to get native support for Apple Silicon, and it still does up to this day. However, if I were to open up quite a bit of stuff, for example, 10 tabs on the software development in Safari, which once again is the most efficient browser, and then 2 Xcode windows, that's generally what I have open, just in case I need to revert back from a previous version. Now, I could use Git, that would be saving stuff, but sometimes I want to copy stuff from different code bases. For example, Wikipedia I would want to copy stuff from and put into StudyDirect. Those are my 2 apps, by the way, if you want to download them. I'll leave links down in the description down below. So basically my workflow is basically use a ton of RAM. I've actually gotten the pop-up quite a bit saying your system has ran out of memory, and I've actually hit quite a bit of swap. So the way macOS handles their swap management is once you have quite a bit of stuff on your machine running, it can't put that process in the RAM, but puts it in the storage instead. And RAM is basically just a really fast hard drive. That's kind of like what I want to call it, except it's just temporary instead of it being completely permanent. And it keeps it there until it's closed. Even if you close out all the other apps, if that process is running on swap at all, or if it moves to swap, for example, Window Manager moves to swap, the only way to really stop that process and move it back to storage is to log out of macOS and log back in. And you might hit this every single day. And if you're really an average user and you really only use Safari, maybe the occasional messages, FaceTime, mail, for example, and playing lightweight games, you're not gonna probably hit swap ever. You might sometimes. I guarantee every single Mac has hit swap at some point. But yeah, it's mostly a me problem why I wanted 16 gigabytes of RAM. That me problem was I needed a new computer desperately at the time, and Apple did not have any 16 gigabyte models in the store, so I had to opt for an 8 gigabyte model instead. And I was just really close. It's just that the Apple Store employees just said there are no 16 gigabyte models in the store, and I didn't even know you had to order it at the time. I was not into Apple that much. I did have an iPhone, I did have an Apple Watch, I did have AirPods, and I was just wanting to get into the Mac. And oh boy, it was the best Apple product I've ever received. But nowadays, what I'm doing now requires 16 gigabytes of RAM that I keep hitting swap quite a bit, and you might as well. Now, for the second reason why I believe Apple should get 16 gigabytes of RAM as standard in the MacBook is, but let's take a look into the past. So back then, Apple had 4 gigabyte of RAM MacBooks. And nowadays, macOS really needs 5 gigabytes of RAM to operate. And 8 gigabyte RAM MacBooks are the lowest ones you can still get and still update to Sonoma. But I go to a rich kid school, and there's still people with 2015 MacBook Airs, 2017 MacBook Airs. I even see 2013 MacBook Pros. Yeah, they should really get an upgrade. But it's working for them. That's cool and everything. Some of them are not getting the latest software updates anymore. Some of them even don't get security updates anymore. Some of them have 4 gigabyte machines, and that is not enough for the average consumer anymore. Most consumers would be fine with 8 gigabytes on macOS and 16 gigabytes on Windows, since, as I said again, 8 gigabytes on macOS is like equivalent to 16 gigabytes on Windows. So we really should be upgrading at some point, because as software gets less efficient with RAM, that number of swap is going to go up, and the average user will eventually hit that swap number. So that is why I believe Apple should increase from 8 gigabytes to 16 gigabytes. If people are going to be using their MacBooks for that long, they want it to stay fast for a long time. And some people might end up switching to Windows. I guarantee some of those people who are running those old MacBooks will switch to Windows since they don't know Apple Silicon exists. I've seen a couple people do that already. And worst of all, you can't just go to the Apple Store, ask for a 16 gigabyte MacBook, and just leave, unless you opt for the higher end Black Pro. Now the last reason is the price. So if Apple were to increase the RAM, they probably won't increase the base MacBook price, because people already think MacBooks are expensive, and people are just not going to buy them if the price just increases. Well, most people won't. And in order to upgrade to 16 gigabytes, it's $200. And some people will keep using their MacBooks for a very long time and be like, why is Apple slowing down my MacBook? Remember that when people thought people were slowing down their iPhones? You're going to think that again. Even though it's the third-party app that you're running that's doing it, or the third-party websites, since websites can take advantage of RAM. So yeah, 16 gigabytes, just increase the limit and it's fine. Apple won't even be losing a lot of money, because a 16 gigabyte RAM upgrade is like $20. And the little RAM chips, unified memory chips, they could just add another one in, and it's gonna cost them like $20-40. That's not much. And Apple won't even be losing a lot of money. So if Apple were to increase the RAM, they should increase all of it. So yeah, don't cheap out Apple. Don't increase the price when you increase the RAM. Don't give us 8 gigabytes RAM, because people could be like, Apple's slowing down my laptop, and then people in the future are going to be like, don't buy MacBooks because Apple slows them down when they get older. They already say that about the iPhones, and it's the battery. Except the battery is a lot different on macOS than it is on the iPhone. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, share this with your friends. Download my apps down in the description down below, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!